This video is going to teach you some tips and tricks on how to increase your point totals when you're playing the Lizard Cult in the game of Root. This video is going to focus on the newer version of the game boards. So very quickly, here is the original game board that was present in Root, and notice that there is a configuration for card drawing that's a little bit different than the current one. In contrast, this is the current player board for the Lizard Cult. So we're going to focus on the strategies that uses the newer of the player boards. When placing the Lizard Cult, if you have an option of which corner to go into, pick the corner that has 2 build locations. These are a little bit more rare. A lot of the corners only have 1 build location. If you can get a double, go for that one. For our initial opening turns, we're going to focus on the second column that's located in the garden section of the faction sheet. And notice that each of these for all of the colors allows you to draw an extra card. In Root, in general, cards are power, so you want to be drawing as many cards as possible. It gives you more options for play, and it's a lot easier to win. I went ahead and drew 3 cards to simulate the beginning of the game. In this case, for the opening draw, we got 2 oranges and 1 yellow. One of the things that we're going to focus on while we're playing the Lizard Cult is to establish strongholds with our warriors early on. There is no sense in building gardens on the map unless they are properly defended. Every time you put a garden down, it gives the enemy a target, something for them to take out, and they can gain a victory point for that. You don't want to be feeding your enemies just random victory points. So do not put a garden down unless it's heavily defended. In this case, in our opening hand, we had 2 orange cards in our hand. So we're going to do the recruit action twice by just simply revealing those orange cards. And our target is going to be a clearing with multiple build sites. I like this one in the middle. It has potentially 3 build locations. Let's say the Vagabond clears that ruin. That'd be great. And you could possibly put 3 gardens down that spot. In this case, though, we're going to put those 2 warriors down and secure that for a later turn. What's great about this option is that we are just simply revealing the orange cards. I don't have to spend them. Next turn, then, I can add another recruit, and then I can put a garden on there, or I can go straight into building a garden. So these are great options. Finally, we had 1 extra yellow card, and we're going to go ahead and place that on another location, somewhat up north, that also had 2 open build spots. Here's a quick recap on our first turn. We placed 2 lizard warriors here, and then we placed 1 up north at that yellow clearing. In this case now, we are ruling 2 clearings. This is allowing us on the subsequent turn to simply reveal these cards again. And we can do one of 2 things. If the enemy starts building up forces in our clearing, we can just simply reveal the cards again and add more recruits. Or if they don't do anything to that location, it allows us then to put a garden down on the next turn. We're going to draw 1 card at the end of our first turn, and it's going to be a red card. Our next turn is going to be all about expansion and getting an extra card draw. So the reason why I have the camera positioned in this location is that you can see the upper right corner is an orange clearing and the one in the middle is an orange clearing. We have 2 orange cards in our hand, which is going to allow us to build. Now, I'm always going to recommend to build in the safest spot possible so you don't get attacked. In the upper right corner, there are 4 troops there, and we're going to go ahead and place an additional garden by revealing 1 of the cards. When we do that, it's going to expose something on the player map that I'm going to show you in a second. In the middle of the map, we're going to make sure that we don't lose a handhold on that orange location. So we're going to go ahead and throw an additional troop there in the middle. We're going to continue to bolster the defenses of this northern location. Now we're at 3-1. And then finally, we have an extra red piece that we're going to put sort of down toward the bottom of the map that's currently off. I'll go ahead and show you what the player board's going to look like. At this point, we've revealed now 2 orange gardens, and this is where we want to be by the end of the second turn. We want to start increasing our card drawing as much as possible to get this engine to take off. So as you can see, now that we've uncovered that location, we're going to be able to gain 2 cards every turn. If you have a card that you can craft, now is a good time to start looking at that sort of thing. So in our opening hand, we have this orange card, which you can build by using one orange crafting resource, and we have 2 orange gardens out on the table. Now, if I play this card, I'm going to lose it, but at the end of the turn, I'm going to be drawing up to my maximum hand size of 5. So start looking for these opportunities after your card drawing increases and improves. You might be able to start playing these crafting cards. The third turn, we're going to start scoring points, and then we're going to continue putting gardens down to increase our presence on the board. So I still have 2 orange cards in my hand. So the first one that I'm going to do is I'm going to keep establishing gardens on the map by spending these. And then secondarily, I'm going to start scoring. Now, when I score a card, I'm going to have to discard it from the game, which is A-okay. So at this point, now I'm going to start scoring victory points, and I'm going to score 2 orange victory points based upon the number of gardens that I have out in play. Then the second part of this turn is I want to keep adding gardens to the map and keep up that presence, so I'm going to maximize my card drawing. Once I start scoring points, I'm going to be losing cards, so I need to be able to replenish those into my hand. And that's where the synergy starts taking off. Once you're drawing an extra 2 or 3 cards per turn, your options for scoring increase dramatically. In this case, we're going to continue and build a yellow presence in the northern area up here. We still have 1 open position. Next turn, what we're going to do is use that yellow card again if all of our troops are intact, and we're going to be able to draw an extra card starting next turn. Next off, we have 2 red cards in our hand. I'm going to show you what we're going to start doing with those. Once you hit about the 3rd turn in the game, most of your enemies are going to start becoming fairly aggressive. So in this case, you can see that the Erie is taking over land, and the Marquise player is as well. So in order for you to secure more of those clearings to build your gardens, you're going to have to start putting troops down and goad your enemies into attacking you. So in this case, we've got 2 red cards in our hand, and I'm going to be placing 2 warriors directly in this Marquise location. Now, this is probably going to agitate the Marquise player, and they're going to attack you, and that's A-okay. So part of the Lizard Cult build is that you want some of your Lizard Warriors to die in combat, specifically when they're defending. So at this point of the game, start being annoying. Start putting those troops and those warriors down in locations to vex your opponent. Make them attack you, okay? Once they start attacking you, you're going to start building up your acolytes, which is going to give you some additional power to do some conversions and some sanctify actions, which are 2 of my favorite in the game. The conversion action, you can literally start replacing enemy warriors with your own, which that's absolutely fantastic. Sanctify is even better. You can replace a building with one of your gardens. So as you start moving forward in this game, you're going to have to start putting gardens down by using the Sanctify action. So let the enemy attack you. Be annoying and allow them to fight you. Your enemy has taken the bait. The Marquise player is really agitated that you're roaming around in their territory. So this is what happened. The Marquise player advanced, added a bunch of troops down. There was a battle. One of the Marquise died, and 2 of the Lizard Cultists died in the battle, which is A-okay. Since they were defending, both of those 2 slain warriors become acolytes, and this is going to allow you to start doing those conversion and those sanctify options. One of the notes and one of the key abilities that the Lizard Cult has, it's called Hatred of Birds. Bird cards are not wild for your rituals. So something that you're going to encounter is that you have those blue wild cards that are in your hand, and typically when you're playing any other factions, you can use them for anything. When you're playing the Lizard Cult, when you use a blue card for a ritual, it's actually a sacrifice action where you take one of your warriors off the board and stick them in the Acolyte's box. So one thing you can do throughout the course of the game, and I wouldn't do this a ton because it's going to diminish your defensive board presence on the table, is that every once in a while you can sacrifice some of them to start building up your acolytes. I think the best option when you're playing the lizard cults is to make your enemies kill your troops. You get something out of it. So that troop can potentially hurt and kill some of the enemy troops when it's being taken down. If you do the sacrifice action, yeah, you can add an acolyte to your box, but you're not getting anything out of it. So I think it's just more cost effective to let the enemies sort of slaughter your troops. So be kind of annoying. Place those troops in locations where you think the enemy is going to attack you and build up acolytes that way. If you want, supplement sparingly by using the blue bird cards in the game. We're going to flash forward several turns into the game to check out what our garden situation looks like on the player board. As you can see, we've made really good headway. We're now drawing an extra 2 cards per turn, so that's 3 cards total per turn. And that's allowing us to score some of these gardens every turn. If you look at the top row for the orange, if we're discarding an orange card, now we can be getting 3 points for that. And then we can be getting 2 for the yellow. We obviously haven't established a really heavy sort of red presence, but we're annoying our enemies. We're putting a lot of those troops down in those red locations, and we're suffering a lot of casualties due to just defending. And as a result of that, we can now start doing these conversion and these sanctify actions and start replacing stuff on the board, which is really fantastic. So I'll show you a quick example of that. I think you're kind of getting the idea at this point. It's all about build troops, build the garden that gives you extra card draws, that you just keep doing this over and over again, throw in some crafting here and there, and it's a pretty solid strategy. The Outcast Marker will move amongst the different colors depending on how many cards are played during each turn. That can fluctuate and vary throughout the course of the game. Be really critical and mindful, though, of where it's at and what location it's at. Now, you can get it if it's 2 turns in a row, it's at the same color, it flips to the hated Outcast, and this is a massive bonus, and this is when things go really crazy in the game. Both your convert and sanctify action, including your crusade, that'll also be decreased by 1 for your conspiracies. But really where you're going to get the biggest gain is conversion and sanctify. If we're in a hated outcast location, you can cash these in for 1 which basically means you can take 1 enemy unit, 1 troop off the board and replace it with 1 of your warriors. That's fantastic. You can take over entire clearings by simply trading out your soldiers. It's really, really hard to counter it. There's nothing the enemy can really do about it, so be really, really engaged and understand what the hated enemy is every time. In addition to that, so sanctify, it only would take 2 of these acolytes if it's a hated outcast to replace a building. So that's pretty crazy as well. So think about taking out an enemy recruiter from the Marquise player or a roost. You could just simply swap it out for 1 of your gardens. That is extremely devastating to the enemy, and it completely derails their plans. And something else it does is there's a gridlock factor associated with it. Since the Lizard Cult has the Pilgrims option, if they have any garden down at a location, they are the ruler of that location, of that clearing, and it overpowers every other rule essentially in the game. And once you start putting this down, it's hard, especially later game, for your enemy to move. If you own the clearing and they don't own, let's say, any of the clearings around it, they can't even move. So especially in a multiplayer game with like 5 or 6 players, a lot of the move options diminish dramatically when you're playing the Lizard Cult. And if they establish a presence in the middle of the board, or maybe cut the board in half, they can kind of knock out movement quite a bit, and you just can't get through it. It's almost like an impassable wall. So be really careful about that, especially when you're fighting the Lizard Cult, but if you're playing them, it's a huge advantage. In the middle and late game, when you're playing the Lizard Cult, your crafting is actually pretty decent. You can use those gardens to craft, and so a lot of these things only basically take 2 crafting resources and you can gain those victory points. So this is a great way to supplement your score total, especially mid and late game, once your card drawing has been established as well. So you can score points both by scoring as your normal portion of your daylight phase, and then you can also supplement a little bit on the back end with some of these crafting cards. So be really aware of that. Maybe you can get like an extra 3 points here, or two. These are great cards. They're fairly cheap to play. And once you have a lot of cards coming into your hand and you're drawing quite a few, you have a lot of different scoring options, which is fantastic. So just be aware of that. You can score each of your colors once per turn, and then if you want, you can augment that with a crafting. So you can have a pretty powerful turn, especially toward the late to end game. You can score, 7 to 10 points in one turn very effectively. So once you get into the 20-point range, you can close out the game easily in one turn if you're paying attention. Hopefully you've learned some cool tips and tricks the next time you field the lizard cultists onto the battlefield of Root. I want to thank you for your time, and as always, have fun gaming.